Imagine falling asleep on a park bench with nothing but an empty stomach and a folder you barely understand, and waking up inside a billion-naira mansion that is legally yours. This is the story of Nnenna, a young woman who lost everything, only to discover that her life was tied to a hidden empire. But what she thought was a blessing quickly turned into a battlefield of secrets, betrayals, and love. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will leave you questioning whether fortune is ever truly free. Lagos at midnight was never silent. The city hummed even when the streets thinned, its restless energy lingering in the dim glow of broken street lamps. Horns from distant danfos echoed faintly. Vendors still argued over the last pieces of suya, and somewhere a generator coughed and sputtered like an old man struggling for breath. Yet here, in the quieter part of the mainland, the night seemed to pause for something unusual. A sleek black car rolled slowly down the narrow road, its headlights cutting through the mist of an oncoming drizzle. Inside, two silhouettes sat in silence, watching. Their attention wasn't on the potholes that rattled the tires, but on a figure curled up on a rusted park bench beneath a tired neem tree. The young woman's body was drawn in tightly, her knees to her chest, her arms wrapped around a battered folder, as if it were the last possession keeping her anchored to life. She didn't stir when the car pulled closer. Her name was Nnenna, and sleep had claimed her with the heaviness of exhaustion only hunger could bring. The car lingered. One of the shadows leaned forward, his face half lit by the dashboard glow. His voice was low, almost regretful. "She has no idea who she is." The car hesitated, then eased back into motion, disappearing into the darkness as silently as it had arrived. On the bench, Nnenna shivered. Her dream painted her in colors her waking life had stolen. She saw herself seated at a dining table so long it stretched like a river, silver cutlery gleaming, plates steaming with jollof rice, grilled fish, fresh fruit. Laughter filled the air, soft music hummed in the background, and for a fleeting moment she was not invisible. But the sharp growl of her stomach ripped her from the fantasy. Her eyes fluttered open to the damp reality. An empty park, the smell of wet earth, and the stubborn rumble of hunger. She pulled the folder closer, pressing it against her chest. That folder was her paradox, both her treasure and her burden. She had never taken the time to properly read through the contents, not with her mind clouded by survival. All she knew was that it once belonged to her father, a man she remembered in fragments, his rough hands, his deep laughter, and then his sudden absence. When he died, neighbors whispered that he left nothing behind. But somehow, this folder had remained, and for reasons she couldn't explain, she couldn't let it go. Her life had not always been this bleak. Nnenna had once been bright-eyed, a graduate who dreamed of working in finance, building her career in Victoria Island's glossy towers. But betrayal had eaten away at her world. A friend she trusted squandered her small savings. A lover she believed in walked away the day her landlord evicted her. And with no safety net, Lagos swallowed her whole, spitting her out onto benches and abandoned kiosks. Now she drifted between survival and despair, her days filled with rejection, her nights wrapped in loneliness. Each time she closed her eyes, she prayed morning would bring something better. The drizzle turned to rain. Cold droplets slipped down her cheeks like silent tears, but she refused to move. She had learned that if she left the bench during storms, someone else might claim it, and even a splintered seat under a tree felt safer than wandering the streets all night. She tilted her face to the sky, whispering into the wet night, her voice a fragile thread. "If tomorrow doesn't change, I won't survive this week." The words faded quickly, swallowed by the rustle of rain in the leaves above. She pressed herself tighter against the folder, shielding it as if the contents mattered more than her own shivering frame. And then, with fatigue heavier than the water soaking her clothes, her eyes slid shut. The world blurred. The harsh smells of the street dissolved. She sank deeper, deeper, into the kind of sleep that feels like surrender. Time bent. Dreams bled into reality, And then, light. Nnenna's eyes flew open, but the first thing she noticed was not the park, not the hard bench beneath her, not the rain soaking her skin. Instead, her gaze caught the shimmer of golden silk curtains billowing softly in the morning breeze. She blinked, her breath catching in her throat. Above her hung a crystal chandelier, scattering light across a ceiling so white and perfect it looked like heaven itself. Her body jerked upright. She was lying not on wood, but on the smoothness of a velvet bedspread. The air was perfumed, crisp, nothing like the sour dampness of the streets. Panic surged through her veins. This wasn't her bench. This wasn't her world. Her fingers trembled against the sheets as her wide eyes darted across the enormous room. Polished marble floors, a carved wardrobe that touched the ceiling, and a balcony door slightly ajar, revealing a garden view too lush to belong to any park she knew. She gasped, clutching her chest. This was no dream. Nnenna was no longer on the bench. She was inside a glowing mansion bedroom, its grandeur whispering a truth she wasn't ready to face. Nnenna's breath came in sharp gasps as she tried to steady herself on the edge of the massive bed. Her palms pressed against the velvet sheets, soft and warm beneath her trembling hands. The room around her stretched like something out of a movie, so impossibly vast that it seemed to mock every night she had curled up on hard benches and cracked pavements. She staggered to her feet, her bare toes sinking into a rug that looked like it cost more than every possession she had ever owned combined. Her wide eyes scanned the expanse, marble walls glistening under the soft glow of hidden lighting, ceilings so high they disappeared into golden arches, and windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, their glass tinted yet alive with automation. As if in response to her presence, the curtains glided open with a soft hum, revealing a sweeping view of landscaped gardens below. Roses bloomed in geometric perfection, fountains danced in synchronized sprays, and a line of palm trees swayed as though they were rehearsed. Beyond the gardens, she caught sight of a rooftop pool shimmering in the morning sun, steam rising from its heated surface. Her body went cold. This couldn't be real. She pressed her palm to one of the glass windows. It brightened instantly, transforming into a smart screen that displayed the weather forecast and the time. Nnenna stumbled backward with a gasp, as though the glass had burned her. A sudden knock jolted her. The door opened, and two women in pristine uniforms stepped inside. Their movements were graceful, professional, their faces composed. They bowed slightly. "Good morning, Madam Nnenna," one said softly. Nnenna's throat closed. Her voice cracked, raw from disbelief. What did you just call me?" "Madam," the woman repeated, with a respectful smile. Nnenna recoiled as though slapped. She wrapped her arms around herself, shaking her head violently. No, this is wrong. This isn't mine. I don't belong here." Before she could retreat further, another woman entered, her presence calm but commanding. She carried herself with the precision of someone who had long rehearsed formality. Dressed in a sleek suit, tablet in hand, she looked every inch the modern executive. "Madam Nnenna," she said firmly but kindly, "my name is Kioma. I am your personal assistant." Nnenna blinked, her lips parting, but no words coming. Kioma held out the tablet. The screen displayed legal documents, company seals, and most importantly, Nnenna's name written clearly across them. Her eyes darted, scanning line after line, property deeds, ownership certificates, bank account records. "All of this," Kioma said steadily, "belongs to you. You are the legal owner of this estate, and much more." Nnenna shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "That's impossible. I'm nothing. I don't even have a place to sleep. How can this palace, belong to me?" Her hands trembled as she touched the screen. Her name glared back at her, undeniable, real. The servants moved quietly around her, arranging breakfast on a golden cart, pouring fresh juice into crystal glasses. The smell of warm pastries filled the air, but Nnenna's stomach knotted tighter instead of loosening. Kioma placed the tablet gently on the side table. "You've always owned this, madam. You simply didn't know." Nnenna staggered toward the massive wardrobe and flung it open. Racks of designer clothes stared back at her. every piece labeled with her name embroidered on silk tags. The shoes were arranged by color, the jewelry locked behind sliding glass doors. She clutched the handles as though holding on to reality. Her mind flashed to the folder she had held every night, never opening it fully, never daring to believe it contained more than forgotten scraps. Suddenly it hit her. Those documents were not useless relics. They were the key to all of this. Her knees weakened. She sank onto the rug, her face buried in her hands. A sob tore through her chest. Years of silent suffering erupting into a flood. Hunger, rejection, betrayal. All of it collided with the overwhelming abundance now crushing her senses. The servants exchanged nervous glances, but Kioma knelt beside her. "It is a lot to take in. But this is your reality now, madam. Your father left it for you, and the world will soon know who you are." Nnenna lifted her tear-streaked face, confusion clouding her. Her father? The same man she had believed died poor, the one she thought left nothing. Questions burned, but the answers felt too heavy to chase in that moment. She dragged herself to her feet, her body still trembling as she faced the gilded mirror mounted on the wall. Her reflection startled her. She barely recognized herself, her tired eyes framed by silk curtains, her thin frame dwarfed by grandeur. And then she froze. In the mirror's reflection, past her own figure, a shadow lingered in the hallway. A tall, unmoving silhouette stood watching, silent and unreadable. Her blood ran cold. Someone was already waiting for her in this mansion, watching. The silhouette in the mirror shifted, and Nnenna spun around, her chest heaving. A man emerged from the shadowed hallway, his steps unhurried, his expression unreadable. He was tall, his suit tailored so precisely it seemed sewn onto his frame. His hair was peppered with gray at the temples, his face carved with the confidence of someone who had long lived in boardrooms and whispered corridors of power. "Nnenna," he said softly, as though they were old acquaintances. "You look just like him." Her throat tightened. Who are you?" He stepped fully into the light, offering a practiced smile. "My name is Obina. I was your father's business partner, his most trusted confidant. And now, I suppose, your guardian in this world you've inherited." The words struck her like cold water. Business partner? Her father? She staggered back against the bed frame, shaking her head. "No. My father, he didn't have any of this. He lived. He died with nothing. That's what I was told." Obina's eyes gleamed, patient yet piercing. "That's what you believed, but the truth, my dear, is far different. The world knew your father as a modest businessman. They saw only a fraction of who he was. In reality, he built an empire so vast he had to hide it, even from his enemies. To protect it, he placed everything in your name. From the moment you were born, you were the true custodian of his legacy." Nnenna's pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to believe him, but her memories screamed otherwise. The man she knew as father was tired, worn, beaten down by life. How could that same man have orchestrated all of this? Her voice cracked, fragile. Why would he hide this from me?" Obina's smile tightened. "Because power draws predators. If the world knew what you carried, you would never have survived to stand here today. Your father played a dangerous game, and only a few of us knew the truth. Now, it is time for you to step into the life he left for you." He walked closer, his presence heavy, filling the room. "This world can be cruel, Nnenna, but it is also yours now, and I will guide you through it." His tone was smooth, too smooth, as though every word had been rehearsed. She studied him, unease crawling through her veins. There was something in the way his eyes lingered, not protective, but appraising, like a hawk circling above prey. Her instinct whispered caution. The day blurred into evening. Kioma entered again, informing her that a private dinner had been arranged in her honor. "Guests of importance," she explained. Nnenna wanted to refuse, but Obina's steady hand on her shoulder silenced her protest. "You must learn to be seen," he said. "These are the people who matter. They must know who you are." Moments later, Nnenna found herself seated at the head of a long dining table, beneath chandeliers that shimmered like captured starlight. Crystal glasses clinked, silver cutlery gleamed, and the air buzzed with perfume and subtle power. Around her sat men and women she had only ever glimpsed on television or read about in the business pages. Bank executives, real estate moguls, even a politician with the air of a kingmaker. They smiled at her, their compliments dripping like honey. "Such grace," one woman said. "Your father would be proud," another chimed. "The future is in safe hands," added a man whose eyes didn't match his words. Every word was warm, but beneath it, Nnenna heard the sharp edges of calculation. She felt their gaze not as admiration, but as measurement. They weren't celebrating her, they were assessing her, deciding how easily she could be bent, controlled, consumed. Her fingers tightened around her wineglass, the golden liquid trembling inside. She forced a smile, but her heart thudded painfully. Through it all, Obina sat calmly at her side, his smile unwavering, his eyes flicking between her and the guests with the precision of a conductor orchestrating a performance. It dawned on her, he wasn't simply introducing her, he was presenting her, like an offering to wolves. By the time dessert was served, Nnenna felt drained, her mind spinning. Every handshake, every whispered welcome, carried a weight she couldn't shake. The dinner wound down, guests rising one by one, offering parting smiles and promises of support. Nnenna stood numbly, her stomach twisted tighter than it had ever been in hunger. As she walked toward the door, overwhelmed and lost, a sudden brush against her arm startled her. A young man, dressed simply compared to the glittering crowd, slipped a folded piece of paper into her palm. His eyes met hers for only a second, urgent but steady. She opened her hand, just enough to read the scrawled words, "They want to control you. Meet me in the garden at midnight." Her chest tightened. The words pulsed in her palm like a heartbeat. Someone in this world of wealth and deception wanted to warn her, and midnight would reveal whether it was salvation or another trap. The mansion was quieter than the city outside, its silence so complete it unnerved Nnenna. Even the walls seemed to hum with secrets. As midnight drew near, she found herself pacing the bedroom, the note clutched in her hand like a forbidden charm. Her heart warred with her mind. Was this a trap or a lifeline? Finally, she slipped into a robe, tied it tightly, and eased the heavy doors open. The hallway stretched before her, lined with soft floor lights that flickered faintly as she passed. She moved like a thief, her bare feet silent against the polished marble. The mansion's scale overwhelmed her. Corridors spiraled into wings she hadn't yet explored. Doors whispered promises of hidden rooms, and cameras, small and discreet, glimmered in corners like watching eyes. Yet somehow she reached the garden undetected. When the sliding glass doors opened, the night air hit her skin, warm and fragrant with the mingled scent of jasmine and newly cut grass. The garden wasn't like any she had seen before. It was futuristic, sculpted like a masterpiece. Pathways glowed faintly beneath her feet, flowers opened in response to sensors, and a fountain in the shape of a glass spiral glistened under moonlight. "Over here," a voice whispered. Nnenna spun, her pulse quickening. A figure stepped out from behind a hedge. He was younger than she expected, his movements measured, but his eyes sharp, observant. He wore a simple shirt, nothing like the tuxedos she had seen at dinner. "My name is Amika," he said softly, raising his hand slightly as though to show he meant no harm. "I used to work for your father." Nnenna narrowed her eyes. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I know what they're doing to you," he replied, his voice steady but urgent. "Obina, the guests, even some of the staff, they don't see you as an heir. They see you as a puppet, a figurehead they can parade while they strip your inheritance piece by piece." Her throat tightened. His words rang too close to the suspicions she already harbored. "And what makes you different? Why should I trust you?" He took a cautious step closer, his gaze unflinching. "Because I knew your father's real dream. He didn't build this empire just for wealth. He built it for something greater." Nnenna tilted her head. curiosity breaking through her fear. "What are you talking about?" Emeka glanced around, as if the flowers themselves might be listening. Then he leaned in, lowering his voice. "Your father's empire was not just real estate and oil. He invested in technology, artificial intelligence, renewable energy, digital finance. But more than that, he had a vision, a city, a place he called Project Eden." The words struck her like thunder. Emeka's eyes burned with intensity. It was meant to be Africa's first fully sustainable smart city, energy independent, technologically advanced, designed to empower ordinary people. He wanted to build a legacy, something that would change generations, but powerful people didn't want it to exist. It threatened their control, their monopolies. They buried it, just like they buried the truth about him. And now, they'll bury you if you dare to resurrect it. Nnenna's breath caught. The idea was overwhelming. Her father, the man she remembered as struggling, had dreamed of reshaping the continent. Her heart twisted. "Why are you telling me this? Why do you care so much?" Emeka's jaw clenched, but his voice softened. "Because I owe him, and because you deserve to know the truth. The same people who hid this mansion from you will destroy you if you expose their secrets. They don't want an heiress. They want an obedient ghost." Silence stretched between them, heavy with danger and possibility. Nnenna studied his face, searching for cracks, for signs of deception. He looked sincere, but sincerity was the most dangerous disguise of all. Her chest rose and fell with unease. She felt something flicker between them, trust's first spark, fragile but undeniable. Yet she held back. Too much had been taken from her to surrender so easily. Before she could reply, the ground beneath them shifted. The glowing paths flickered. Then, suddenly, the garden plunged into darkness. Nnenna's breath caught. The fountains silenced. The hum of hidden systems died. The mansion, alive only moments ago, now felt like a tomb. "Stay still," Emeka whispered, his voice tense. And then it came, a voice, mechanical yet intimate, echoing from hidden speakers embedded in the walls of the estate. The tone was calm, chilling, almost like a lullaby. "She must never know the truth." Nnenna's body stiffened, fear surging through her veins. The voice seemed to come from everywhere, wrapping around her, suffocating. Her eyes darted to Emeka, whose face was pale in the faint moonlight. He clenched his fists, muttering under his breath. "Now they know you're listening," he said grimly. Nnenna's knees weakened. Whoever they were, they had just made their wide presence known. And it was clear, they weren't afraid of her. They wanted her silent. In the suffocating darkness, with the mechanical warning still echoing, Nnenna realized she had stumbled into a game her father began, and one that could destroy her before she even understood the rules. The blackout lasted less than a minute, but it was enough to rattle Nnenna to her core. When the light surged back, the garden glowed again in its manicured perfection, the fountains resumed their dance, and the mansion hummed back to life as though nothing had happened. But for Nnenna, nothing felt the same. That mechanical voice had sliced through her illusions. The mansion was not merely a gift, it was a cage, alive with watchers. Back in her bedroom, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw shadows in the hallways, mirrors that seemed too reflective, and sensors blinking like unseen eyes. She walked restlessly through the corridors, fingertips brushing the walls. That was when she noticed it, a panel that didn't quite align with the marble surface. Curiosity pushed her. She pressed lightly. The panel shifted with a quiet click, revealing a hidden compartment, empty but lined with dust. Her heart quickened. If one wall hid secrets, how many others did? The following morning, she confronted Kioma casually, asking about the mansion's design. Kioma's polite smile never wavered. "Some areas are off-limits, madam, for your safety." Off-limits. The word crawled under her skin. This was supposed to be hers, yet she was being warned away, like a guest in her own home. When Emeka returned that night, she told him what she found. His expression hardened. "Your father was a genius, Nnenna. He built this house like a vault of knowledge. It's more than luxury. It's coated with secrets. If you want answers, you'll have to search deeper. And so, they did. Together, they began mapping the mansion, moving cautiously through corridors at night. They discovered hidden safes behind paintings, panels that opened to reveal shelves of encrypted hard drives, and doors sealed with digital locks requiring codes no one had given her. It was as though the mansion itself challenged her. Prove you are worthy to inherit me. On the third night of searching, they stumbled into a room that felt untouched by time. Dust motes floated in the air, but everything was meticulously arranged. At the center stood a massive desk of polished mahogany, and behind it, a wall of holographic screens that flickered to life the moment she stepped inside. Her breath caught. This was her father's private study. The screens projected images of cities, charts of energy grids, and maps dotted with red markers across Africa and beyond. She reached out tentatively, and the holograms shifted under her fingertips. Reports sprang open. Shares in technology firms in Silicon Valley, patents for artificial intelligence applications, diagrams of solar farms, and contracts for wind turbine projects. Her head spun. He was invested in all this? Amika nodded, pride flickering in his eyes. Your father was far ahead of his time. Renewable energy, artificial intelligence, financial technology. He wasn't just building wealth. He was building the future. But as she scrolled further, she noticed something else. Transactions that seemed inconsistent. Funds siphoned into shell companies. Assets shifted without clear purpose. Someone had been tampering with the empire, redirecting its flow. Her stomach knotted. So it's true. Someone is manipulating everything. Emeka's voice lowered. Obinna, he's kept you in the dark for a reason. He knows how much power you truly hold. The name Project Eden appeared again, this time highlighted in multiple files. Diagrams showed sprawling layouts of a city with renewable power grids, AI-managed traffic, smart housing, and green belts stretching for miles. The description beneath was chilling in its ambition. A city where Africa leads the world, not follows it. Nnenna's fingers hovered over the files, her chest rising and falling with awe. She could almost hear her father's voice pushing her toward the vision. Yet fear gnawed at her. If Project Eden was so revolutionary, it explained why the voice in the garden had warned her to stay ignorant. For the first time since inheriting this surreal life, her mindset shifted. She was no longer the girl simply surviving benches and storms. Something greater was calling her, and it demanded courage. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, I have to know the whole truth. Days blended into nights as she continued exploring, piecing together fragments of her father's empire. Her hunger was no longer for food, but for knowledge, for answers buried in walls and files. Every discovery sharpened her determination. One evening, after hours in the study, her eyes landed on the giant portrait of her father that dominated the wall. She had looked at it before, but this time something struck her. The frame seemed thicker than necessary, its edges uneven. Her instincts flared. She pressed her palm against the bottom edge. The portrait clicked, sliding soundlessly to the side. Behind it, hidden in the wall, was a vault door. Its sleek surface gleamed under the study's soft lights. A biometric scanner pulsed red, scanning the air as if awaiting her touch. Nnenna's heart thundered. She raised her trembling hands slowly, hesitating just inches away from the scanner. The red light blinked, steady and expectant, as though the mansion itself whispered, "Prove who you are." The days following the discovery of her father's hidden study transformed Nnenna's resolve. Where she had once wandered the mansion in awe, unsure of her place, she now moved with sharper purpose. She studied documents at dawn, scoured files at midnight, and demanded explanations for every paper placed before her. Obinna noticed, and Obinna did not like it. He appeared one morning in her study, his face shadowed with irritation, his suit immaculate as always. His voice, though calm, carried an edge. "You're moving too quickly, Nnenna," he said, folding his hands behind his back. "Your father's empire is fragile. These companies are like threads in a tapestry. Pull too hard, and it will all unravel. Only I know how to keep it from collapsing." Nnenna sat straighter, her eyes meeting his without flinching. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind, steeling herself against his polished authority. "If the empire is mine," she said slowly, "then I have the right to understand every detail before I sign a single thing." A flicker of annoyance crossed his face, gone as quickly as it appeared. He slid a folder across her desk. "All I ask is your signature. I'll handle the rest." Her fingers hovered above the pen, then stopped. She pushed the folder back to him. "No, not this time." The refusal hung in the air like thunder. Obina's smile stiffened, his eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. He was used to obedience. This defiance unsettled him. That evening, Nnenna shocked everyone by sending out summons for a full board meeting. Chioma raised an eyebrow when she delivered the notices. "This will not be easy, madam. Many of these men and women have been loyal to Obina for years." "All the more reason they should meet me," Nnenna replied. The boardroom was a world she had only ever imagined while gazing at skyscrapers from bus windows. Its long mahogany table gleamed under pendant lights, and leather chairs creaked as directors settled into them. Their conversations buzzed low, skeptical glances darting toward her as she entered. Some whispered too loudly, "She's too inexperienced. She won't last. This is Obina's doing. She's just a face." Nenna's stomach tightened, but then she felt Emeka's presence behind her, steady and reassuring. His voice echoed in her memory from the night before. "Project Authority. Don't try to prove yourself to them. Make them prove themselves to you." She walked to the head of the table, lifted her chin, and sat. The murmurs quieted. Obina began, his tone oily with control. "Directors, this is Nnenna, our heiress, the custodian of all your futures. She will, of course, sign the necessary papers to ensure continuity." "Not yet," Nnenna interrupted, her voice clear and firm. The room fell silent. Obina blinked, a thin smile stretching across his lips. "Perhaps, Nnenna, we should not—" She cut him off again. "Before I sign anything, I want to know why quarterly reports show sudden losses in divisions that were once profitable. I want to know why offshore accounts are draining resources without explanation. And most importantly—" She leaned forward, her gaze sweeping the room. "I want to know what each of you has done to earn your place here." The silence was electric. Several directors shifted uncomfortably. One cleared his throat, fumbling through a vague answer. Another bristled, muttering about inexperience. But others watched her with growing respect. They recognized the steel in her voice. It was the same tone her father once used. Obina's jaw tightened, though he tried to mask it with laughter. "You've been doing your homework, I see." "I'm only getting started," she replied. The meeting stretched for hours. Nnenna pressed with sharp questions, her instincts sharper than she imagined. Emeka's subtle nods from the back of the room steadied her. By the time the directors rose to leave, the atmosphere had shifted. Some walked out muttering insults under their breath, but a few lingered, bowing slightly in quiet acknowledgment before departing. Respect had begun to sprout, fragile but real. As Nnenna gathered her notes, exhaustion swept over her, but beneath it bloomed something new: power. She realized that wealth was not a prize. It was not comfort or luxury. It was war. Every smile was a weapon, every contract a battlefield. And if she was to survive, she could no longer think like the girl who once slept on a bench. She stepped out of the boardroom, shoulders squared, her heart pounding with the thrill of her small victory. But the triumph lasted only a moment, for standing at the end of the corridor was a woman she had never seen before. Elegant, poised, with a confidence that radiated like perfume. Her gown shimmered under the chandelier's light, and her eyes locked onto Nnenna's with a mix of familiarity and challenge. The woman's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Hello, sister." In an instant, Nnenna's fragile new confidence fractured. Her inheritance was no longer a solo war. A new player had just entered the battlefield. The corridor seemed to tighten around Nnenna as the woman's words echoed. "Hello, sister." For a moment, she couldn't move. The stranger's elegance was overwhelming, Her gown shimmered like liquid gold. Her makeup was flawless, and her posture carried the assurance of someone raised to belong in grand spaces. Every inch of her screamed sophistication, the kind Nnenna had only observed from a distance while clutching job applications that went unanswered. "I'm Nnenna," the woman said smoothly, her smile practiced but her eyes sharp. "Your father's other daughter." The word daughter hit Nnenna like a blow. Her chest tightened. "That's impossible. My father, he never—" Nnenna raised a perfectly manicured hand, silencing her. "You believed you were the only one, I know. But while you were surviving here in Nigeria, I was raised abroad, under his provision. London, Geneva, Dubai. I saw the world while you—" Her gaze flicked, almost condescendingly, to Nnenna's plain dress. "Stayed behind." Heat rushed to Nnenna's cheeks, a cocktail of anger and humiliation. Yet a part of her hesitated. If her father had been capable of building a secret empire, what else might he have hidden? Within days, Nnenna moved into the mansion. Temporarily, she claimed, until the legalities are sorted. Her presence spread like perfume, heady, intoxicating, impossible to ignore. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never known hunger, never begged for survival. She spoke fluent French to international guests, quoted market trends with ease, and laughed in a way that made directors lean closer, eager for her approval. The staff, who once looked at Nnenna with reverence, now glanced toward Nnenna with admiration. Even Kioma, loyal and discreet, seemed unsettled by her arrival. Nnenna felt the walls closing in. Every step Nnenna took seemed to erase her progress. Every smile drew allies away from her. Every calculated laugh weakened Nnenna's fragile authority. At a dinner one evening, Nnenna sat quietly as Nnenna recounted tales of European boarding schools and elite parties on yachts. Guests hung on her every word, nodding in admiration. When Nnenna spoke, trying to bring up her father's projects, she felt the weight of polite but dismissive smiles. She was being drowned in her sister's brilliance. Afterward, she confronted Obinna in private. "Who is she really? And why are you so eager to accept her claim?" Obinna's smile was thin. "She is your father's child, Nnenna. You must learn to share. Nnenna has connections, polish, experience. She could be a great ally." But Nnenna saw the truth in his eyes. Nnenna wasn't an ally. She was a pawn Obinna preferred, smoother, easier to guide, less questioning. That night, Emeka found her pacing in the study. He listened quietly as she poured out her frustration. Finally, he said, his voice low and steady, "Nnenna isn't who she claims to be. Your father never mentioned her, not once, and I knew him more closely than most." Nnenna frowned, torn between doubt and hope. But what if he did hide her, the way he hid everything else? Emeka stepped closer, his gaze steady. "Then why is every move she makes designed to weaken you, not strengthen you? You can't ignore the feeling in your gut." Nnenna wanted to believe him, but insecurity gnawed at her. Standing beside Nnenna felt like staring into a mirror that mocked her. Where Nnenna was elegance, she was rough edges. Where Nnenna spoke confidently, she stumbled. The comparisons clawed at her until she began avoiding mirrors altogether. Still, she couldn't shake the suspicion. One evening, unable to contain her unease, she slipped into Nnenna's wing of the mansion. The room smelled of imported perfumes, the wardrobes lined with gowns worth small fortunes. Her heart pounded as she opened drawers carefully, afraid of being caught. Most contained jewelry and documents that seemed ordinary enough. But then, in the corner of the room, she noticed a chest of drawers that didn't sit, flush against the wall. Her breath quickened. She tugged gently, and it slid forward with unexpected ease, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small leather case. Hands trembling, Nnenna opened it. Her breath caught. Passports. Multiple ones. Each with Nnenna's face, but under different names, different nationalities. Identities forged with precision. Her knees weakened as realization hit her. Nnenna wasn't just polished. She was a master of reinvention. Nnenna clutched the forged passports to her chest, the weight of betrayal sinking in. Her sister was not who she claimed to be, and the game had only just begun. The discovery of Adana's forged passports could have shattered Nnenna, dragging her back into the familiar pit of self-doubt. But instead, it sparked something deeper, a flame she hadn't known she carried. For the first time since stepping into the mansion, she refused to see herself as the helpless girl who once begged for bread. If her so-called sister could reinvent herself through lies, then Nnenna would reinvent herself through truth. She began quietly, with small changes. A new wardrobe was curated, not chosen by servants, but by stylists she interviewed personally. Gone were the ill-fitted gowns that made her feel like an imposter. In their place came tailored power suits, silk dresses that exuded elegance, and bold accessories that demanded attention. Each outfit became armor, each look a declaration that she was no longer invisible. Then came the voice. She hired a public speaking coach who drilled her in articulation and poise, teaching her how to hold a room, not just with words, but with silence. She learned when to pause, when to let a statement linger, when to meet a man's gaze and refuse to look away. For months, she immersed herself in training. Financial mentors taught her to read balance sheets with sharp eyes. Negotiation experts walked her through simulations, preparing her to sit across from men who underestimated her. Every day she studied until dawn, then emerged into daylight, stronger, sharper, more dangerous. Her transformation became visible. The girl who once cowered at boardroom whispers now sat at the head of tables, her questions precise, her presence undeniable. The same directors who once doubted her now leaned forward when she spoke, scribbling notes, adjusting their ties nervously under her gaze. Soon, the world outside began to take notice. Paparazzi cameras captured her stepping out of luxury cars, her image gracing magazine covers with headlines like, "The Unexpected Heiress, from Bench to Billionaire." Social media buzzed with admiration, young women posting her speeches with captions like, "If she can rise, so can I." But Nnenna didn't stop at personal growth. She channeled her father's vision, pouring funds into Nigerian tech startups and mentoring young entrepreneurs. She visited universities, delivering speeches that lit fires in students' hearts. She spoke not only of wealth, but of resilience, of rising even when the world pressed you into dust. Her actions shifted the narrative. No longer a puppet heiress, she became a symbol of possibility. Her name carried weight, not because of her inheritance, but because of what she chose to do with it. Emeka watched quietly from the sidelines. He admired her growth, pride evident in his eyes, yet he never relaxed his guard. He reminded her often, "Power attracts enemies. You must stay vigilant, even when the applause is loudest." And indeed, not everyone celebrated her rise. Adana, once the star of every gathering, began to fade in comparison. Where Nnenna's authenticity drew people, Adana's charm suddenly seemed rehearsed, her elegance a mask. She grew restless, lashing out in subtle ways, snide remarks, veiled threats, whispered alliances. Obinna, too, grew colder, watching with thinly veiled frustration as Nnenna claimed spaces he had reserved for himself. Yet, he said little, choosing to bide his time, waiting for her to make a mistake. But Nnenna pressed forward. She attended galas now, not as a silent figure in the corner, but as the woman everyone wanted to meet. Her laughter filled rooms, her insights cut through shallow conversations, and investors sought her counsel eagerly. She was no longer following the script written for her. She was writing her own. One evening, at a glittering gala in Victoria Island, the room sparkled with chandeliers, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses. Nnenna stood at the center in a gown of deep emerald silk, diamonds at her ears, her presence magnetic. She had just finished a speech about youth innovation, and the applause still echoed. As she mingled with guests, shaking hands and exchanging smiles, a man approached her quietly. He wasn't like the others. No loud laughter, no flamboyant gestures. His suit was understated, his gaze steady, his presence commanding without effort. He leaned in, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "Your father's empire was only the beginning." Nnenna froze, her glass trembling slightly in her hand. The man's eyes locked onto hers, unwavering. "Do you know about Project Eden?" The words sank into her chest like a stone. It wasn't just about inheritance anymore. The secrets of her father's unfinished dream were calling, and someone else knew about them too. The mysterious investor's words lingered in Nnenna's mind like an echo she couldn't silence. Project Eden. It was the same phrase she had glimpsed in files hidden deep within her father's study, the same dream whispered by Ameka during their midnight meetings. Now, hearing it from a stranger confirmed what she feared most. Her father's unfinished vision wasn't just a secret. It was a threat to those who wanted his empire dismantled. That night, long after the gala's glitter had faded, she returned to the study. The holographic screens glowed in the darkness, filling the UI room with an otherworldly light. Her hands trembled slightly as she keyed in search terms. Dozens of files unfurled before her: architectural models, blueprints, energy flow diagrams, and policy drafts. Project Eden wasn't just an idea. It was an entire city. The holograms expanded to reveal towering skyscrapers powered entirely by solar grids, communities sustained by vertical farming, automated public transit weaving seamlessly through green corridors. Each district was designed not only for efficiency, but for culture, art, music, and tradition woven into the city's very fabric. It was a Nigeria where innovation and heritage coexisted, where Africa wasn't following the world, but leading it. Her father had envisioned a hub where children could grow without the shadow of power outages, where markets thrived without exploitation, where technology wasn't imported, but created. It was bold. It was audacious. It was everything the elites who controlled the country's resources feared. Nnenna sat back, overwhelmed. Her father hadn't simply left her wealth. He had left her a destiny. But the files also revealed the battle he had faced. Minutes from old board meetings showed opposition. Influential men had dismissed Project Eden as unrealistic, too disruptive, too dangerous to their monopolies. The more she read, the clearer it became. They had buried the project, not because it couldn't succeed, but because its success would cost them their grip on power. Her chest rose and fell with new fire. This wasn't about marble floors or chandeliers anymore. This was about legacy. Her father's vision had been silenced, but she would not let it die. "I'll finish what you started," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. The next morning, she shared her discovery with Ameka. His eyes lit up, a mixture of pride and caution. "I knew you'd find it," he said, "but this isn't a dream you can chase alone. If you move openly, they'll destroy you before you lay the first brick." He revealed that he had secretly kept contact with some of her father's former allies, architects, engineers, and visionaries who had once worked on Project Eden before it was killed. Men and women who had scattered, silenced by fear, but who still believed in the dream. Quietly, carefully, Ameka began to reconnect the dots. Secret meetings in cafes disguised as casual hangouts. Confidential video calls routed through encrypted networks. Slowly, names reemerged, men and women who remembered the blueprints, the passion, the hope. Nnenna listened to them with hungry ears, her heart swelling as they spoke of her father's dream. Some wept as they recounted how much of themselves they had poured into the project before it was crushed. They called her a light returning to finish what he began. But as her conviction grew, so did resistance. Obinna sensed the shift. He noticed her absence from parties, her whispers with unknown faces, her refusal to rubber stamp his decisions. His patience began to crack, his words sharper, his tone less polite. "You're chasing ghosts," he warned one evening. "Your father's empire was built on caution, not fantasies. Don't let ambition drown you." But she could see the fear in his eyes, and behind him, Nnenna too began to falter. Her smug confidence wavered as allies slipped toward Nnenna, drawn not by glamour, but by vision. For the first time, Nnenna's mask cracked. She realized that no amount of polish could compete with authenticity. Nnenna pressed on, sketching the first outlines of Project Eden's revival. It began quietly: consultations, feasibility reviews, updates to outdated blueprints. She spoke to young innovators, investors who believed in Africa's potential, and architects eager to dream again. Each step was cautious but steady. The movement was growing. One evening, as she reviewed plans on her tablet, her breath caught. A notification blinked in red, a message from an unknown sender. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Stop Project Eden or lose everything, including Emeka." Her heart stopped. The threat was no longer abstract. They knew what she was building, and they knew who mattered most to her. Nnenna gripped the tablet, fear and fury colliding. The war wasn't just about money anymore. It was about love, loyalty, and the future of an entire dream. The message threatening Emeka replayed in Nnenna's mind endlessly, each word seared into her chest. She sat in the study, staring at the glowing tablet, fear pressing against her ribs. Yet amid the storm, one truth emerged clear. She could not face this battle alone. That night, when Emeka returned from yet another quiet meeting with her father's old contacts, she broke the silence. "They know about Project Eden," she said, her voice thin but steady. "And they know about you." He froze, then leaned closer, his eyes searching hers. "What did they say?" She swallowed, the words trembling out. "That if I don't stop, I'll lose everything, including you." The admission cracked something inside her. For weeks, she had walked these glass halls armored, presenting strength to enemies and strangers. But in that moment, before him, she let the armor fall. Her voice shook as she whispered, "I don't know who to trust. I don't even know if I can trust myself. Everyone wants something from me. Sometimes I wonder if you do too." The silence stretched. Emeka's jaw tightened, but then his expression softened. He sat beside her, his hand brushing hers, hesitant at first, then firm. "Nnenna, I made a promise to your father, not to his empire, not to his fortune, to you." Her breath caught. He continued, his voice low, carrying a gravity she hadn't heard before. "Long before he died, your father knew his enemies would come for his legacy. He told me, watch her. Protect her, even if she never knows your name. That's why I'm here. Not as an opportunist, not as a pawn, but as the shield he hoped you'd one day need." Tears stung her eyes. She had spent years abandoned, betrayed by friends, forgotten by the world. To hear that someone had been watching out for her all along, silently, faithfully, was almost too much to bear. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she whispered. "Because you weren't ready," he said simply. "You had to stand on your own first. You had to see yourself, not as the girl from the bench, but as the woman who could carry a vision." Their hands lingered together, silence thickening into something unspoken. Hours passed as they sat in the dim glow of the study, their conversations shifting from strategies and names to memories and scars. She told him about nights she had gone to bed hungry, about the loneliness that gnawed worse than any hunger. He told her about his loyalty to her father, about the risks he had taken to keep her hidden inheritance safe. At some point, her head leaned against his shoulder. His arm circled her, not as protector to heiress, but as man to woman. The closeness, born from fear and fire, transformed into tenderness. In that quiet moment, love blossomed, not with fireworks, but like a flame steady enough to warm a frozen heart. But love, in a house built on secrets, was dangerous. Nnenna noticed quickly. She saw the way Nnenna's gaze lingered on Emeka, the way his presence gave her strength. Jealousy burned like acid. One evening, while Nnenna was away in a board meeting, Nnenna intercepted Emeka in the library. She stepped close, her perfume intoxicating, her smile sly. "You don't belong to her world," she purred. "She's naive, clinging to dreams that will destroy her. But you and I, we could rule this empire together." Her hand grazed his arm, lingering deliberately. "Why waste your loyalty on a girl who doesn't even know how to wield the power she's been handed?" Emeka stepped back, his face hardening. "Loyalty isn't something I waste, and I would never betray her. Not for you, not for anyone." The rejection sliced deeper than Nnenna expected. Her charm faltered, her smile cracking as fury burned beneath. From that day, the rivalry between sisters deepened, not only over wealth and power, but now over love. Nnenna sensed the tension. The air in the mansion thickened, every shared glance between her and Emeka fueling Adana's resentment. It was no longer just about inheritance. It was personal, venomous, and bound to explode. Still, Nnenna clung to the solace she found in Emeka's arms, even as whispers of danger grew louder. His presence gave her courage, his devotion gave her hope. But one evening, as she returned from a meeting, she noticed something she hadn't before. Emeka was seated in her father's study, the holographic screens glowing around him. He quickly shut one down as she entered, too quickly. Suspicion prickled her skin. "What were you looking at?" He hesitated, his silence stretching into something sharp. "Emeka," she pressed, her voice tightening, "what are you hiding from me?" The man she trusted above all others had secrets of his own, and the weight of those secrets could shatter everything they had built together. The silence in her father's study grew suffocating as Nnenna fixed her eyes on Emeka. His hesitation sliced through her like a blade. She had given him her trust, her heart, and yet, here he was, guarding something in the very room where her father's vision lived. "Tell me the truth," she demanded, her voice sharp, trembling. "No more half-stories. No more protecting me. What are you hiding?" Emeka exhaled slowly, the weight of his secrets heavy on his shoulders. He turned away from her, staring at the glowing holograms before speaking. "Your father gave me instructions before he died. He told me there were things about this empire, about his enemies, that you weren't ready to hear. He said if I revealed them too soon, they would break you before you had a chance to rise." Her chest tightened. "So, you've been lying to me?" He shook his head quickly. "Not lying, waiting, protecting, guiding you until you were strong enough." His words softened, but her eyes hardened. "Strong enough for what, Emeka? To find out that the sister I opened my home to isn't even who she claims." The air thickened. "Yes," he admitted finally. "I've known for months. Adana's passports, her identities, I've been tracking her movements long before she appeared. She's a fraud, Nnenna. I wanted to shield you from her until you had the power to confront her without falling apart." The confession struck deep, an arrow wrapped in both love and betrayal. Her heart burned with anger, but beneath it, a wound opened wide. How could he hold this from her, especially when she had trusted him more than anyone? Her lips trembled as she whispered, "You decided what I could handle. You chose for me, just like everyone else." The words stung him visibly. But before either could mend the fracture, the world outside tightened its grip. The next morning, headlines exploded across the media. "The bench girl heiress. Madness or miracle?" Inside Nnenna's delusions. Is she fit to lead? Obinna and Adana speak, the real story of the empire. Videos played on every channel, clips of Adana giving tearful interviews, claiming Nnenna was unstable, unworthy, a pretender thrust into wealth she didn't understand. Obinna backed her, his calm, rehearsed tone lending credibility. "We tried to guide her," he told reporters, "but she is reckless, endangering her father's legacy." The strategy was clear: to destroy Nnenna's image before she could fully rise. For days, her phone buzzed with calls from journalists, investors pulling out, staff whispering behind closed doors. The mansion that once seemed like a palace now felt like a fortress, under siege. Nnenna stood at the window one evening, staring at the skyline. The city she loved now doubted her. But instead of breaking her, the fire inside her blazed hotter. "No more silence," she told Emeka. "If they want to bury me, I'll rise louder than they can shout." Against his cautious advice, she arranged her own press conference. The hall was packed, cameras flashing as she walked to the podium in a crisp white suit that shimmered under the lights. She looked calm, but inside, her pulse raced like thunder. She began softly, her voice carrying the weight of scars. "They call me the bench girl heiress, and they are right. I did sleep on benches. I did starve. I did beg. And because of that, I will never forget where I come from. But what they don't tell you is this: My father's dream was never just about wealth. It was about a future. Gasps rippled as holographic projections lit up behind her, revealing the blueprints of Project Eden. "This is the legacy I inherited," she continued, her voice steadying with every word. "A city powered by green energy. A city that gives back more than it takes. A city that proves Nigeria, Africa, can lead the world. They call me unworthy. But I ask you, is it unworthy to believe in possibility? To finish what my father started?" The room erupted. Journalists shouted questions, cameras flashed wildly. But the tide was shifting. Social media caught fire, hashtags praising her courage, flooding timelines. Ordinary people began calling her a symbol, a voice for change. Nnenna left the stage with her head high. For the first time, she felt the people rallying not just behind her fortune, but behind her vision. But victory was short-lived. That night, as she returned to her mansion, Nnenna was waiting at the top of the grand staircase. Her lips curved into a venomous smile, eyes glittering with malice. "You think one speech makes you untouchable," she hissed. "You don't know this world, Nnenna. You don't know how far they'll go. If you don't back down—" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "The person you love most will disappear." Nnenna's blood froze. Nnenna had found her weak point, and now Emeka's life hung in the balance. The threat from Nnenna hung in the air like poison, but instead of breaking Nnenna, it steeled her. For too long, she had reacted to the world's blows. Now, she was ready to strike back, not with fear, not with desperation, but with truth. The days that followed were a blur of quiet planning. With Emeka by her side, she pieced together the evidence she had hidden away. The forged passports, the trail of false identities, the documents Obinna had concealed, and the inconsistencies in Nnenna's story. Each fragment was a weapon, sharp enough to pierce the facade her enemies had so carefully constructed. When the moment came, Nnenna chose her battlefield wisely. Not a backroom or a boardroom, but a stage where the world was watching. She called for a global investors forum, inviting the very leaders who had doubted her, the media who had maligned her, and the people whose voices had begun to rally behind her. The hall was alive with tension. Obinna and Nnenna arrived first, confident smiles plastered across their faces. To them, it was the perfect stage to finally end her credibility. But when Nnenna walked in, head high, clad in a gown that radiated quiet authority, the air shifted. She began not with anger, but with calm clarity. "They say truth fears the light. Today, let's test that." The screens behind her lit up, one by one, displaying Nnenna's forged passports. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Nnenna's voice never wavered. "This is the woman who claims to be my sister. These are the lives she has lived under names not her own. And the man who brought her into my home—" She turned, eyes narrowing on Obinna. "The same man who siphoned funds from my father's empire, who sought to make me a puppet while selling off what generations should inherit." Obinna's face paled. Nnenna's composure cracked. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, voices rising. The once powerful duo now looked cornered, stripped bare by truth. By the time the forum ended, Obinna was disgraced, his name dragged through the mud of corruption. Nnenna disappeared into the shadows, her charm dissolved into infamy. And Nnenna? She stood tall, untouchable. Through it all, Emeka was there, steady, loyal, his presence anchoring her even in the storm of headlines and scrutiny. When the dust settled, when the crowd dispersed, he took her hand openly, not as protector, but as partner. For the first time, they no longer needed to hide. With enemies out of the way, Nnenna turned fully to the dream that had begun with her father, Project Eden. She unveiled it to the world, not as a fantasy, but as a plan. Architects, engineers, and young innovators rallied to her. Governments hesitated, elites resisted. But the momentum was undeniable. The media, once skeptical, now hailed her as a visionary. Construction began. Slowly, the first foundations of the futuristic city rose, solar grids gleaming in the sun, sustainable homes designed for ordinary families, Tech hubs buzzing with youthful ambition. The world watched, and for once, Africa wasn't being pitied or dismissed. It was being studied, admired, envied. Nnenna's mansion transformed too. No longer just a house of marble and shadows, it became a beacon. She opened its halls to young entrepreneurs, hosted training programs, and invested in schools and housing projects. She never forgot the nights she had curled up on benches, stomach empty, hope fading. That memory became the compass guiding her investments. The mansion that once caged her now symbolized survival, transformation, and generosity. Through it all, her love with Emeka bloomed openly. They walked hand in hand through construction, sites, attended galas together, and stood side by side in front of cameras. But in private, their moments were softer. Quiet laughter over shared meals, whispered dreams of the future, gentle reassurances on nights when the weight of responsibility pressed too heavily. One evening, as she strolled through the halls of her father's mansion, she paused before the portrait that had once concealed so many secrets. The eyes in the painting seemed warmer now, as if he were proud. She thought of the bench, of the hunger, of the despair that had nearly broken her. And then she thought of the empire she now carried, the love she had found, the legacy she was building. She smiled faintly, her reflection shimmering in the glass. "This is not just inheritance," she whispered, her voice firm, resolute, echoing through the mansion's glowing corridors. "It's destiny." And with that, Nnenna stepped forward, not as the girl from the bench, not as the heiress thrust into wealth, but as the queen who had awakened fully into her throne. If Nnenna's journey moved you from the bench to the mansion, then imagine the stories still waiting to be told. Hit the like button if you believe dreams can rise from the ashes, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe, because more powerful billionaire dramas are coming your way. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next twist.